and they approved the vaccine without the data. And now they found out. It is just wild. Isn't that exactly what I was screaming the entire pandemic in all of my videos? I mean, this is karma, I'm telling you. Finally, my words came out, and I knew, didn't I? If you follow me, you know that I was talking about this all the time. This is really wild. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Ayguen Sahin. I'm a geneticist and cancer researcher with specific focus on cancer immunotherapy. I'm in the field of cancer and cancer research for more than 20 years, and I'm running a global cancer nonprofit organization. If you're interested in topics like cancer or health, I encourage you to visit our Cancer Nonprofit's YouTube channel. This is my personal channel. On this channel, I talk about a variety of topics, sharing with you facts, and encouraging you to think critically and help you to put the pieces together and empower yourself through knowledge. With knowledge comes power, and on my channel I also do a lot of self-empowerment videos. Thank you for being here. I hope you like it. In this video, I am going to share with you something quite wild that I saw in the news. As always, I will share with you the news and do a discussion on my take on these news, okay? So I hope you will like it. This video is about Moderna. If you followed me for some time, you know how outspoken I was throughout the entire pandemic, and I was actively non-stop involved in pushing the government, pushing the FDA to approve a non-mRNA vaccine, and was very outspoken about it. Was helping to get the FDA finally approved Novavax vaccine, the protein-based vaccine COVID-19, and I am one of the people who waited for more than 2.5 years to get the Novavax vaccine. I have all the information about my Novavax vaccine journey and all about the pandemic and all the vaccines and all the educational videos you can find on my channel. And this is a video about Moderna and the news that broke out today, which I found wild and so surprising how this was presented in the media. So I want to share this with you. I will have another Moderna video coming up, which I talked about in my previous video, in my recent video. That's coming up. So subscribe if you haven't already, like this video, share this video, and comment what is your take on this. I'm very curious. So without further ado, let's get started. So this news came out today on January 11, 2023 in CNN. Not kidding you. It came out in CNN. I was shocked, and let me tell you, and I want to read, this is a kind of a long article, but I want to read this entire article to you because it's so critical and it's just like mind-blowing. It's really wild. So, and I will share the link of the article. You can also read it for yourself, but let's get started. It's very wild. So, FDA vaccine advisors disappointed and angry that early data about new COVID-19 booster shot wasn't presented for review last year. So, the bivalent vaccine by Moderna, the data wasn't even presented, the preliminary data wasn't even presented to the FDA committee, and they approved the vaccine without the data. And now they found out. It is just wild. So let's continue. I mean, this article is like, wow, was really shocked that actually came out on CNN, you know. And so here it is. Some vaccine advisors to the federal government say they are disappointed and angry that government scientists and the pharmaceutical company Moderna didn't present a set of infection, this is important, infection data on the company's new COVID-19 booster during meeting last year when the advisors discussed whether the shot would be authorized and made available to the public. The data suggested the possibility that the updated booster might not be any more effective at preventing COVID-19 infections than the original shots. The data was early and had many limitations, which we'll talk about in a minute, but several advisors told CNN that they were concerned about a lack of transparency. Whoa, this is wild. US taxpayers, this is also very important, this sentence. US taxpayers spent nearly $5 billion on the new booster, which was given to more than 48.2 million people in the US. I'm shocked they mentioned US taxpayers, because in my FDA talk, on all of my videos throughout the pandemic, I was consistently talking about the US taxpayers, how the US taxpayers actually funded 100% Moderna's COVID-19 vaccine, as well as 100% of the Novavax vaccine. And billions of dollars went to Pfizer as well. And of course, BioNTech, as a German company, got 720 million in initial taxpayers' money from the German people. Okay, I was angry to find out that there was data that was relevant to our decision that we did not get to see. This is so wild, said Dr. Paul Offit, a member of the Vaccines and Related Biological Products Advisory Committee, to which I give my FDA talk, a group of external advisors that helps the FDA make vaccine decisions. Decisions that are made for the public have to be made based on all available information. Not just some information, but all information. Isn't that exactly what I was screaming the entire pandemic in all of my videos? I mean, this is karma, I'm telling you. Finally, my words came out, and I knew, didn't I? If you follow me, you know that I was talking about this all the time. This is really wild. And I'm so happy that this came out in this manner. Let's continue. At a meeting of this FDA advisory group in June and a meeting in September of a panel that advises the US Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, the experts were presented with a ream of information indicating that the new vaccine worked better than the one already on shelves, according to a review of videos and transcripts of those meetings and slide presentations made by Moderna, CDC, and FDA officials. That data, called, this is important, immunogenicity data, was based on blood work done on study participants to assess how well each vaccine elicited antibodies that fight off the Omicron strain of the virus that causes COVID-19. The data was not presented to the experts looked at actual infections, who caught COVID and who did not. It found that 1.7% of the study participants who received the original booster became infected. Among those who got the updated bivalent vaccine, the one that scientists hope will work better, a higher percentage, 3.2%, became infected. Both versions of the shot were found to be safe. This infection data was far from complete. The number of study subjects who became infected was very small, and both the patients and the researchers were aware. Think about this. were aware of who was getting the original shot and who was getting the new booster. Are you kidding me? Both the patients and the researchers knew who was getting the original shot and was getting the booster. It is not a blinded study. Like, are you kidding me? Despite these imperfections, the data was included in a preprint study that was posted online in June, again in September in an FDA document, and then later that month in a top medical journal. And advisors to the FDA and the CDC said the data should have been shared with them too. It is not a group of children. We understand how to interpret these results, said Dr. Rubin, a member of the FDA Vaccine Advisory Committee. Oh my God. This is wild. I'm telling you. This is, watch my coming videos. It's just crazy. The 6 FDA and CDC advisors interviewed by CNN said that this infection data wouldn't have changed how they voted because the data had such limitations, but it still should have been presented to them. There should always be full transparency, said Dr. Arnaud Monteau, a professor of epidemiology at the University of Michigan School of Public Health and acting chair of the FDA Advisors Group. These data should not be dismissed. They are early, but they indicate that we need to look at them and see what their value is. Dr. Pablo Sanchez, a member of the CDC panel called the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, said that if the data was looked at as part of the study, it should have been presented to the advisors prior to their decision. I'm telling you, this is wild. The FDA and the CDC convene their advisory board meetings and make presentations to the advisors. At last year's meeting, Moderna executives made presentations as well. The advisors then make their recommendation to the agencies, and the agencies decide whether to authorize the shots and recommend them to the public. Moderna spokesman Christopher Ridley said in an email to CNN that the company shared the infection data with the FDA and posted the study manuscript before the agency's panel meeting in June in response to requests that we share an update from the ongoing study. That study preprint, listen, that study preprint was posted online June 25, 3 days before the FDA advisors met. Michael Felderbaum, an FDA spokesman, told CNN in an email that the FDA received the preprint less than a day prior to the advisors committee meeting, and the information was therefore not provided in an adequate time frame for it to be included in the agency's meeting materials. And generally, the FDA only discusses data at the advisory committee meetings that the agency has had the opportunity to substantively review. That's exactly right, because when we asked to submit our talks to the FDA Advisory Committee meeting, there was a deadline, and you had to, if you do a PowerPoint presentation, you had to do is at least, I believe, if I remember correctly, it was like 5 days or 7 days. The deadline was 5 or 7 days before the FDA meeting. They had to receive it first. Watch all the videos, because I made it clear that this is the deadline for the public to submit if you want to share your thoughts. And if you are not presenting the talk, if you just write comments, it has also a deadline so that it can be put in front of the advisory committee members before they met. So that's exactly what the public had to do. So a company who has a product and wants to get it through the FDA to approve is failed to do so? Come on. Don't get me started here. Numerous studies support the finding that the COVID-19 vaccines remain the best defense against the most devastating consequences of COVID-19, such as hospitalization and death, and that the updated vaccines may help provide better protection against the current circulating variants, Felderbaum wrote. He added that throughout the pandemic, the FDA has remained as transparent as possible regarding its processes and decision-making regarding the FDA vaccines, and that Moderna could have chosen to present the data at the advisory committee meeting. Kristen Nordlund, a CDC spokeswoman, said that due to the many limitations involving this clinical data, it was not featured in the CDC's advisory committee discussion. Emphasis on transparency. The advisors said there are three main reasons why it matters that the infection data was not presented to them. One, they said, is the potential impact of their decision. If Americans were going to be getting these shots, all available data should be brought to the table for consideration. Two, the advisory committee meetings are streamed live online, exactly, and regulatory agencies around the world use the information to help make decisions about vaccines in their countries. I agree with two of these. Three, they stressed that transparency is important. The public doesn't witness conversations among FDA officials or between agency officials and pharmaceutical company executives, but they do get to watch the advisory panel's proceedings. Exactly. The outside experts said the pandemic has demonstrated the extent of vaccine hesitancy in the US, and it would be reassuring to the public if all data, not just some, were discussed during the advisors' meeting. Infection data not included in presentations by FDA and Moderna. Last summer, as the FDA's and CDC's outside advisors considered the updated boosters, the stakes were high. They knew that in just a matter of months, winter would be approaching and COVID rates could spike. They also knew the original vaccine was getting less effective with each new variant, and that the addition of the Omicron strain in the updated booster might help battle the virus. The FDA advisors, 21 voting members, including infectious disease experts and vaccinologists from Stanford, the University of Pennsylvania, and Harvard, met for a full day on June 28. Dr. Stephen Hoge, the president of Moderna, or is it H-O-G-E, is it Hoge? I guess so. The president of Moderna made a presentation to the advisors and frequently referred to information from the preprint study that had been posted 3 days before. The study was funded by Moderna and led by company scientists, and it had not been subjected to peer review or published in a medical journal. That the data Hoge shared with the advisors demonstrated that blood tests on about 800 study participants indicated that the new bivalent booster was superior at increasing antibodies to the Omicron variant compared to the original vaccine. Hoge did not mention another part of the study that cast a less positive light on the updated shot. In that part, The researchers gave some participants the existing vaccine and other participants the updated booster, and then they kept track of who became infected with COVID-19. Among the hundreds of participants who received the original vaccine and showed no evidence of a prior COVID-19 infection over the period of the small study, 1.9% became infected. Among the hundreds of who received the bivalent vaccine, a higher percentage, 3.2%, became infected. The preprint did not indicate whether these findings were statistically significant. A 22-page FDA briefing document given to the advisors did not mention this infection data. Dr. Jerry Weir, director of the Division of Viral Products at the FDA Office of Vaccines Research and Review, also did not mention the infection data in his presentation to the advisors. At the end of the June 28 meeting, the FDA advisors voted 19-2 to recommend the inclusion of an Omicron variant for the COVID-19 booster vaccine. Of it, a professor of vaccinology at the Perelman School of Medicine at the University of Pennsylvania, which is a great immunology institute, university and institute in general, like immunology, very hardcore, and Dr. Harry Bernstein, a professor of pediatrics at the Zucker School of Medicine at Hofstra Northville in New York, voted in opposition. Over the next month, the US government announced agreements to purchase the bivalent booster from Pfizer and Moderna, a contract for $3.2 billion with Pfizer and for $1.74 billion with Moderna. Limitations of Moderna's infection data. The infection data that wasn't included in the Moderna and FDA presentation has several serious limitations, according to the 6 advisors who spoke to CNN. First, the number were very small. We talked about 800 people. The study analyzed only hundreds of patients and only 16 became infected. None of them ended up in the emergency room or were hospitalized. As Rubin, a professor in the Department of Immunology and Infectious Diseases at the Harvard Chan School of Public Health and one of the FDA advisors, pointed out, vaccines are meant to prevent severe disease and death. These are impossible to measure in such small studies. And a better antigenic match could result in decreased numbers of people who get hospitalized or who die. Second, participants were not this is just mind-blowing. Second, participants were not randomly assigned to receive either the original or the new vaccine, and the study was not double-blinded, meaning the participants and the researchers knew who was receiving which shot. Lack of randomization and blinding can bias study results. Duh. Third, the primary purpose of the study was not to study infection rates, but to do immunogenicity. As I said in the beginning, immunogenicity analysis, taking blood from participants and examining their antibody responses to the vaccine. Ridley, the Moderna spokesperson, noted these limitations in his email to CNN. The primary objective of the study was to assess the safety and immunogenicity of the bivalent vaccine. The study was not randomized and did not control for infection risk between arms, making comparison of a relatively small number of cases problematic, he wrote. Nearly $5 billion for updated boosters. On August 31, about 2 months after the FDA advisors meeting, the agency authorized the Moderna bivalent vaccines. The Moderna infection data was included in the agency's written decision, but it was not posted online until September 13, according to Felderbaum, the FDA spokesman. On September 1, the CDC advisors, 14 voting members, met to consider whether to recommend the bivalent boosters for Americans to get in the fall. Several CD scientists presented data at that meeting but did not include the infection data. Nordland, the CDC spokeswoman, said in her email that the CDC was aware of the data that would later be published in the New England Journal of Medicine, but that assessing infections was an exploratory objective of the study, which was not designed to assess vaccine effectiveness. She added that in assessing infections, researchers used different durations and endpoints and points in time among very small group of people, and because of the limitations of data, it was not featured at the meeting. CDC vaccine recommendations are made following an evaluation and presentation of high-quality vaccine efficacy or immunobridging data, Nordland wrote. Dr. William Schaffner, a non-voting member of the CDC's advisory committee, called Nordland's argument very weak. My God, what kind of theater is this? The data are limited, but they are informative, and I think one would have anticipated that a complete presentation would have included them, said Schaffner, an infectious disease specialist at Vanderbilt University Medical Center. I mean, this weak comment by the CDC, I would expect that, because what is even CDC doing? I mean, I'm happy that the FDA researchers, advisory committee members are speaking out about this. Wow. I mean, I'm really shocked that they do, and I'm really shocked that this is published on CNN, but this is just wild. What's going on? Wow. Dr. Jacqueline Miller, a senior vice president at Moderna, presented to the advisors. Like her colleague Hogue, the company president, she showed material suggesting that the bivalent vaccine was superior and did not show slides detailing the statistics about the infection rates, according to a copy of the slides she presented. Several hours into the meeting, one of the CDC advisors, Dr. Sibyl Sinias, an associate professor of medicine at the Warren Alpert Medical School of Brown University, asked Miller about cases of COVID-19 among study subjects who received the original vaccine versus the updated bivalent booster. Miller said that among subjects with no evidence of prior infection, as well as those with evidence of prior infection, the disease incidence rates were 2.4% for the group who received the original vaccine and 2.5% for those who got the bivalent booster. The data would publish 2 weeks later in the New England Journal of Medicine. When she answered Sinia's question, Miller did not mention other aspects of the infection data in the published study. That data indicated that among hundreds of participants with no previous COVID-19 infections, infection occurred 1.9% of those who would receive the old vaccine and the 3.2% of those who received the new bivalent vaccine. God, I can't believe this crap. She also did not mention breakdowns of whether participants were sick with COVID or had asymptomatic illnesses. The study, like the preprint, did not mention whether any of these findings were statistically significant. I'm losing my mind. Oh my God. At the end of the meeting, the CDC advisors voted 13-1 in favor of recommending the bivalent booster, with Sanchez, a professor of pediatrics at the Ohio State University College of Medicine, voting in opposition. The CDC director, Dr. Rochelle Walensky, signed off on the recommendation later that day, and the vaccines were made available to the public. Currently, they are the only booster available once someone has had their primary series of COVID-19 vaccine. God, more than 6 months after the FDA advisors met, Moderna still has not released data from a randomized phase 3 trial comparing infections in participants who received the new booster with those who received the old shot. The company expects to release such results shortly, with about 3,000 participants, according to Redley. Pfizer does not currently have data on incidence of infection post-bivalent booster. However, we continue to monitor real-world data and collect data from our own studies, according to a statement from Jerica Pitts, Senior Director of Global Media Relations. Together, the new updated boosters from Pfizer and Moderna cost taxpayers nearly $5 billion. To put that in perspective, that's about the size of an annual budget of the state of Delaware. Former FDA scientists, no excuse for excluding infection data. A former FDA scientist who helped run the agency's vaccine division told CNN that if he were still at the agency, he would have advocated for sharing the infection information with the advisors, even if it was made available only a short time before the meeting. I don't think there is any excuse for excluding it, even with its imperfections, said Dr. Philip Krause, who served as a deputy director of the FDA's Office of Vaccine Research and Review until he resigned in October 2021. The company's failure to present this information at the FDA advisors meeting and the omission of discussion about the data at that meeting raises questions about the ability of the process to provide a full and transparent review of the data, he added. My God. Krause said his main concern was preserving or regaining the public trust in the FDA. That's the critical thing, he said. The FDA's objective review of the data is what is providing the great value to the American people, because this way they know that somebody who doesn't have a stake in the outcome has looked at the deepest possible level at these data. FDA and CDC vaccine advisors echoed Krause's concerns about transparency. I think that as much data that's available should be made public and available for discussion by advisory groups so that the public can see, yes, the available science has been evaluated and best as possible at that particular time, said Bernstein, the member of the FDA Advisor Committee. Bernstein added that he was disappointed that the data had not been presented to him and the other advisors. Offit, the member from the University of Pennsylvania, said he was angry. I was angry to find out that there was data that was relevant to our decision that I didn't get to see. Angry because they should trust us to make the decision based on all data. These agencies, whether it's the FDA or CDC, can't make that decision for us. That's the point of having an independent advisory committee, he said. Wow, that's powerful. Obviously, he's from the University of Pennsylvania, like the really strong immunology institution right there. It shook my faith. About a month after the CDC advisors met, studies were released from researchers at the Harvard and Columbia suggesting that new vaccines didn't work any better than the original. Exactly, because I was following that and it's just crazy. Those studies, which were very small and only in preprint and not in a medical journal, measured immune responses after people got the bivalent vaccine compared with the original version of the vaccine. We essentially see no difference between the old boosters and the new about a month after the shot, said Dr. David Ho, a professor of microbiology and immunology at Columbia, whose team authored on one of the studies. President Joe Biden and other administration officials continue to emphasize that the updated booster is the best way to avoid hospitalization or death from COVID-19. But nearly 4 months after its release, only 15.4% of the US population age 5 and older has opted to get the shot, according to the CDC data. On January 26, the advisors are scheduled to meet again to discuss future COVID-19 vaccination regimes. Of it, the FDA vaccine advisor said the Columbia and Harvard studies convinced him even more that the infection data and all the related caveats should have been given to the advisors from the beginning. This was not acceptable. I understand we are in the middle of a pandemic. I understand we are building the plane while it's still in the air, but you can't do this, he said. It did shake my faith. It shook my faith in how these decisions were being made. Wow. I mean, this is just wild stuff. What's going on? I'm so happy that this came out, that these advisory committee members speaking out, wow, what, and not just speaking out, they're just speaking out. Now I'm even more convinced, like all of my efforts, the way I spoke, the way I pushed it, the way I emphasized things, that I'm happy that I did, because exactly this is madness, this is ridiculous, and this is, I can't believe that this is being done in such a manner that's completely disrespectful to the American people, the taxpayers who actually funds the Moderna, Pfizer, BioNTech, all of these vaccines. And I just can't believe this is happening, and I'm so happy that they are speaking out, that is even published in CNN. Like, wow, what is happening? I'm happy that I share this information with you. It is just wild and mind-blowing. So don't forget, there's a June 26th second meeting with the FDA Advisory Committee. If you have anything to say, definitely submit your comments before the meeting. Wow, let me know in the comments what you think. Don't forget that I have a Moderna, like very crazy stuff with Moderna that I saw with my eyes. I want to share that with you. That's coming up soon. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share with me your comments about this. Let me just know if you're mind blown like I am, and I'm so happy that they spoke out. And let me know what you think, if this makes any difference. Something is changing. Look at this. I mean, something is changing, I'm telling you. Okay, so thanks for subscribing. Thanks for supporting my channel by becoming a member. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.